Plumbing, part 2. Just because it doesn't leak, doesn't mean it's okay. So last week I showed you guys my simple yet very effective fully integrated water system that I created for my Volkswagen Transporter. In that very same video I showed you some plumbing tips and tricks, some do's and don'ts, pipework and fittings that you should or shouldn't use when it comes to doing your very own water system in your own van conversion. And it's fair to say that you guys had a lot to say about it. I've had many messages ranging from people just giving me a shout out of appreciation because they're just about to take on their own water system and the video couldn't have come at a better time. I've had reoccurring messages asking me the same questions. I am going to address them questions such as, how do you pass through the van? What was your waste pipe? I've had other plumbers in the comments. Worse than that, I've had engineers in the comments. And worse than that, I've had misguided DIY enthusiasts. There are in fact no governing bodies that regulate what we do or do not use on our water systems for our van conversions. You can in fact use whatever you want. But just because it doesn't leak and just because it does work, that doesn't mean it's right. In the previous video, I immediately and categorically ruled out 15mm copper, and this was something that I didn't believe that I was going to meet any friction with. I thought we all knew that there was no place for 15mm copper in a van conversion. Many reasons I could think of that I didn't even go into, such as it freezes long before plastic pipe. It will split once it's frozen long before plastic pipe. Another 2 reasons there straight off the bat: do not use 15mm copper. But how wrong could one plumber be? A good helpful video with some tips relating to the PTFE and inserts. There's no reason why you're not able to use copper in a van, and use of a bending machine will negate using elbows. Those SPEEDFIT are compatible with copper. Yes, they are. Hacksaws are fine to use. No, they're not. Don't use if you can't cut straight. It's not about how straight you cut it, it's about the finish of cutting it. Someone invented a very useful tool that takes away all of that. It's called a pipe slice, but still don't use copper in a van. Strange how the tank is designed with the outlet at the bottom. As plumbers know, the outlet from a tank should never be at the bottom. We'll touch on that in a minute because plumbers all know that. What I took from that is this guy either wants to use copper in his van, is going to use copper in his van, or has already used copper in his van. Now, if you check the comments out later, he admits that he's used copper in his van, and I think what he wanted from me was a bit of comfort to say, yeah, it's okay if you don't use any joints whatsoever and you do it out of one continuous pipe and you use a pipe bender. Now, if you have the skill and inclination to do that, using one piece of copper in a van, up, down, left, right, if you can do that, you should know that there are better ways. And I've explained all about the pipe work. I just wanted to touch on the fact that sometimes just because someone says it, it doesn't mean it's right. And once again, this is all just one man's opinion. I'd like to think that I know a tiny bit about the plumbing side of things. Any of this is one man opinion. There's no regulations. There is no right and wrong. And his system probably does work and it probably is fine. But check this out. In my hand here are the 2 styles of fitting that you will no doubt get with your water pump. One or the other, sometimes even both. This style here locks into the pump and that is ready to take 12mm John Guest. This style here is that 13mm barbed, remember that golden number, 13mm for that other style of pipe. That there is ready to take the other style of pipe. So if your water pump comes from factory ready to take 2 styles of pipe, is that not significant enough to tell you that that's the kind of pipe that you should be using? Now, this is the one that came with my pump, and I will put the link to this pump below. I totally forgot, loads of people have asked. I will put the link to this pump in the description. Go check that out below. It came with the 12mm John Guest, like I said, but guess what? From the manufacturer of this pump, you can in fact buy the fitting that goes into the pump that then gives you 13mm barbed. And that's what I use because, as we know, I use the flexible hose style. Check this out. So I was able to come straight off the pipe with a factory fitting that was a 90 degree ready to take that hose style. Guess what? they do not make a fitting that goes straight to 15mm copper. Yes, you can use 15mm copper. Yes, you can use 22mm copper. You can use 4-inch soil pipe if you so desire. I don't care what you use, but just because it doesn't leak and just because it does work, it doesn't mean it's right. If you spent a hell of a lot of money on a van conversion from a well-known company and you lifted up some seat cushions and you saw that the pipework was ran in 15mm copper, alarm bells would be ringing. That company at best would be deemed to be amateur. In my mind, a lot of things are opinion based, but I thought that that was one thing that we could all agree on. Maybe not so much. That's probably the most controversial kind of conversation that I had regarding the last video. Like I said, he mentioned that the water tank, the water outlet shouldn't be on the bottom. I think there's been a bit of confusion there. In a house scenario, you never put the water outlet on the actual bottom, like the bottom coming out like that, because he's right. You do get a bit of sediment build-up and things like that. You've got to remember, a 50-gallon tank in a house will never get washed out. That's being emptied and filled up with fresh water, which has got calcium and lime in it, that kind of thing. You can gain sediment. And if you look in the bottom of any water tank, there will be bits on the bottom. But you have to remember, this is a camper van tank that you can, in fact, unlock the bottom and wash it out. It's being used once a fortnight. If you don't put the water outlet near the bottom, anything below that outlet is useless. If you had a 10-inch tank that had 100 litres, if you put that outlet 2 inches up, you are going to lose 20 litres. That's significant. That's a fifth of your water supply lost, potentially because you've had some misinformation. Had a guy once tell me 100% sincerely that you should not put a carbon monoxide detector high level because carbon monoxide is in fact heavier than the air. It needs to be low down, otherwise it's not going to work and basically anything could happen. Had his lines crossed between LPG and carbon monoxide. And we did have an engineer in the comments. And I know that because his message started a little bit like, I've been an engineer now for about 20 years. And regarding the amounts of PTFE wraps that you've done on that joint, he then went on to talk about the coarseness of threads and the difference it makes and things like that. But he did finish off with, but you're absolutely right. Just cover it until you can't see the threads anymore and you'll be absolutely fine. There are a few plumbers in the chat. None of them had much to say because I wasn't reinventing the wheel. Everything that I said was kind of like basic plumbing, simple stuff. One guy, one plumber, and I think, just to be a funny guy, he asked, why can't you use 10mm SPEEDFIT? Thanks, mate. You can. And do you know what? If you're going to use white generic SPEEDFIT, do use 15mm because once again, look at the size difference between those two. In my personal opinion, it looks like microbore central heating. And if that's not enough to turn you off, finding the fittings that will take you from 10mm to 1/2-inch mil and things like that for this are just as difficult as finding them for the 12mm stuff. So why would you? They also become more expensive than the 12mm when you're getting into the funny fittings. Elbows and tees, inserts and pipe, nice and cheap. When you're getting into 10mm to 1/2-inch male, 10mm to 1/2-inch female, they start creeping up more than the 12mm. So why would you? So if you're thinking about do that, at least do that. A recurring question in the previous video was, how did I pass my pipe from underneath the van up through the van? So I thought I would address it because I'm only trying to help you guys the best way I can. I was always going to use my plumbing background. I wasn't going to use like a motorhome gland or anything like that. So I bought one of these. This is called, when it's continuous thread like that, it is called a running nipple. This is a running nipple to 1/2-inch female. And what I was going to do was drill a hole, pop that down through, put a nut at the top, nut at the bottom, clamp that tight. So that is one sealed entity on my van, then come off the top and join it at the bottom. That would have looked a lot like this. So that gap there represents the cross section of the van. Now please remember, I've got a 30mm bronze floor. That's why I ordered that extra long running nipple. You can buy these in 10mm increments. So that would represent the cross section of the van there, clamped tight. But what I've done there is created 1, 2, 3, 4 extra joints. Like I said to you in the last video, if you can eradicate as many joints as possible, why wouldn't you? So what I did is I bought a 3/4 running nipple. Now this isn't a running nipple because the one I ordered for the sake of this video hasn't turned up yet. But if you were to think of that black as the cross section of the van and assume this to be longer, that's the cross section of the van. These two nuts clamp the cross section of the van like that. And if you haven't got an extended bronze floor like mine, this might even actually do it. And then what I've done is use that as a pass through. So I've used that to pass my continuous piece of pipe through. Now there is a little bit of play in this one. The one that I installed in the van, I almost had to squeeze it right the way through because it has a thicker wall. I will put a picture of that on now and I'll put a link below. The one in my link, you will have to wait for it from Amazon because that's what I'm currently doing. That is such a tight fit through there that you wouldn't even bother sealing it up. Because you have threads sticking down below and threads sticking up, the idea that driving water could drive up there, totally impossible. That's how I've passed through my van from top to bottom. Where did you get your sink? And without doubt, the most popular question of all, how did you do the waste? So first and foremost, the sink was from Amazon. I will put the link below. I started by Googling discreet sink or hidden sink. Comes with a plate like I previously mentioned that goes on the top there. I'll never install that. Bendy tap came with it. You can buy folding tap. Just simply, if you see something like that and you go, wow, where did he get that folding tap? Google folding tap. Where did he get that hidden sink? Google hidden sink. That's all I did and this came up. This was on Amazon. I think I paid about £180 for it. It was quite a setup. Don't forget, this is designed to be used domestically. So £180 for your kitchen sink in a house doesn't seem so much. £180 for a sink in your camper van, you're at domestic money, don't get me wrong. And if you're not that bothered about your tap not being at worktop height, check out half bowls. Yes, half bowls, 0.5 bowl. So kitchen sinks, they will come as a bowl and a half. Sometimes they sell them separately. I know B&Q do them all the time. You can get a half bowl. You can even get some that got like chopping boards or strainers and that kind of thing. A half bowl, I always thought would be the perfect camper van kitchen sink, but the tap would be surface mounted to your worktop. Purchasing this sink came with a few side effects because I've got no doubt in my mind it's from China. And a bit like when you buy a kitchen sink from IKEA, I've been a plumber long enough to know, someone says, oh, I've got an IKEA kitchen. I say, does the sink come with real plumbing? The plumbing is never British standard sized plumbing. It's never what I call real plumbing. This is the waste that comes with that sink. In a camper van, look at the space that's going to take up. That is no dice. So I used a standard kitchen waste. I totally ridded all of that. And if you're ever going to do that, take your part that you're trying to match to the place that you're buying fittings. Otherwise you spend your life going backwards and forwards. So I basically took that sink into Screwfix, put in the code for 5 different kitchen wastes. That's what that's called, a kitchen waste or a strainer, basket strainer. I ordered 5 of them and I went through them to see which one fitted the best. And the only discrepancy that you will get is the fact that the color wasn't the exact match. I found one that fitted absolutely lovely. And you see how this is like this graphite color. Now I have looked on a previous take. That looks to stand out way more on the camera than it does in actual real life. This is a plug and that will be in there pretty much 99% of the time. It fits absolutely lovely, and you could use the basket strainer that comes with this. So it can be done. And if we look underneath, I didn't use it in the conventional fashion. I've stripped this away to show you guys this, so I hope you appreciate it. But that is a very valid point. Make sure that you can access things like the waste and the water fittings. Don't bury them forever. But yeah, I've used a standard basket waste. I've capped off the bottom. So that's 1.5 inch cap. And then I've used what would be the overflow as the outlet. I've got a join there, a simple washing machine hose joiner. And that pipe there, which disappears off and becomes my waste pipe, is in fact washing machine hose. I'll show you that shortly. And like I said in the previous video, always make sure that you cap the hot if you're only using one of the supplies. That is such a space saver because instead of going down to go across, I'm basically coming off at 90 degrees. And while a sliver of you may say, well, he's putting a lot of trust into these Jubilee clips, that seems to be what all of his joints are. That is how you would join this in your home situation. In a domestic situation, this would be your washing machine hose and it would join onto a spigot that is under your kitchen sink. I know you've got the version that you pop in the top and you just leave it. The more common way nowadays is that that would join to a part of your waste system and simply Jubilee clip up. Now, have you ever felt the pressure of a washing machine waste when it kicks in? They are under so much pressure. You're not going to get anything like that with a gravity dumping kitchen sink. One Jubilee clipped joint, I'm not concerned about that. Absolutely well worth it when it comes to saving all of that space. I think what I've done there is a good space saver. And then all I've done is literally routed this through the van, and in the long wheelbase, there is a secret little hatch that you can, in fact, fish this down through and it pops out underneath your van. All along the inside skin on the underside of a Volkswagen Transporter are these grommets. They're about 3 inches in diameter. I'll put a picture over the top now of how I came through the van and I've popped out using one of those grommets. I simply split it with a Stanley knife and I've come through. It's absolutely gorgeous how I've done it. I've managed to get the waste out with not a single hole drilled in the van. And I've basically now used an overflow tank connector and it dumps on the floor. And that's very irresponsible of me, but for the few times that I use it, it's only for washing hands, maybe rinsing a cup out. I don't think I'm destroying the planet. It's just the same as like ruching a cup out and throwing it on the floor. You do it, you know, it's not shower water, it's not potty water, anything like that. Brushing your teeth, spitting on the floor, are you destroying the world? I don't know. Perhaps I'll get some eco warriors in the comments. It's not going to be used for any more than that. And if I ever went to a campsite or ever was going to use this a bit more excessively, I can slip one of those roll-alongs underneath. Motorhomes and some caravans come like that, doing exactly the same. They are ready to be picked up with an external tank. For me, I'm never going to use it much more than washing my hands. So, jury's out. I know a lot of people do it and a lot of people complain about it, but like I said, it's not shower water, it's not grey water, just a little bit of washing up water. Don't get me wrong, I'm probably not going to get any brownie points for it, but at any point you can roll a collapsible bucket under there to pick it up, whatever you need. Bonus top tip. I mentioned to you guys previous that I haven't fitted a filter or an accumulator on my little system. Just kept it real stripped back, real simple. What I did do, where my hose lock hose fitting on the water inlet joins the pipework, I used one of these. This is a 3/4 gauzed or mesh washer. You get these for showers. So I have a water filter in the black van, one of those little inline things, and it never seems to have done anything. It's as crystal clear as it was the day I fitted it. And that's not to say, yes, that means it's working, because these are designed to obviously pick up on any foreign bodies or any kind of silt buildup. And you can see the mesh on the water filters because they have a transparent lid. Doesn't really seem to be needing to do anything. So I've opted to just put one of these in line, and that will be more than sufficient. Don't overstress your fittings. I have seen installations where in fact you can see that the fitting is under strain. So if you need to get from here to say down here, sometimes you can bend the pipe and that's okay. I mean, that's sat there naturally, but sometimes you can see that they're being strained to make it. If you bend that excessively, what you're doing there is you're actually putting pressure on one part of the rubber and you're opening a gap up on the top. A circle needs to be going into a circle, and when you do that, you're just asking for trouble. Now, when you first do your install, it may not leak. It may be over time that starts to get upset with the fact. You can usually tell because this like ring there is at an angle. When it's in a natural position, see how the gap around there is similar all the way. When you stress it out, you see how it's leaning over. Don't bend the pipe in the fittings. It's just asking for trouble, and it looks absolutely horrible. If you can keep everything at 90 degrees, it's just so much more pleasing to the eye to look at. And there's a few tricks. If you've got your pipe like that and it's sitting naturally and it's off at a bit of an angle, and that, yes, of course, try and straighten it up. But if you twist it like that, that's now dead straight, ready for you to put that fitting on the next one. It's all about conception. Now, that's not a practical kind of fix, don't get me wrong. That the pipe going like that and then off, it's going to work. It just looks horrible. If you can keep everything at 90 degrees, then come off there, it just looks so much more professional. I hope I've helped. I hope I've cleared a few things up. I hope you managed to take the time to subscribe and check my shop out below. And I hope to see you next Tuesday.